I'm Rich Andreski, Bureau Chief for Public Transportation at the Connecticut Department of Transportation. And I'd like to welcome you to Along the Lines, a podcast series where we'll explore current issues and ideas on Connecticut's public transportation system. Welcome to another episode of Along the Lines. This is the second of a special two-part episode on rail travel in Connecticut. In this podcast, we will provide updates on projects that will improve our customers' experience on Connecticut's rail network. In part one, we examined the current trends we see on rails, and our guests talked about what they expect for the future. Returning with me today are my guests, Rich Jankovich, Rail Administrator at the Connecticut Department of Transportation, and Jim Gildea, Chairman of the Connecticut Commuter Rail Council, to take a deep dive into these issues. So, Rich, continuing our conversation, we just talked in part one of this episode about the rail trends and changes in commuting habits. So what are some of the top priorities for Connecticut's passenger rail system as we look ahead in 2021 and beyond?
Thanks, Rich. First and foremost, what can we do and how can we improve the ridership as we referred to in the previous segment? It's a slow and gradual increase that we've been seeing, but really our goal and priority for 2021 is how do we improve the ridership so that we can exceed the forecasts? So there's a couple areas we'll talk about. One of them will be definitely the customer's experience on the trains, and we'll talk in more detail about that. And that's taking the train to work as well as leisure travel, but it's also what we can do with the trains to improve that experience so that when they're coming back, they want to come back and take it more frequently. Wrapping up the Waterbury branch work. We've been doing a lot of work up there, so the priority for 21 is to really complete all that work on the infrastructure, the signal system, and getting ready for what we're really excited about is additional service up there in 22. And then reviewing, maybe I've not really gone into this yet, but reviewing the speed and capacity analysis. We've been working on this for a few years. We have another segment of that analysis underway as we speak, but creating capital projects that will increase speed and capacity. And I believe in this segment, we'll talk more about that, but we're looking forward to not only starting some in design, but also wrapping up that very extensive study and starting to put more projects into the system on the design and then into construction.
Thanks, Rich. We touched on the need to sort of look at how people are traveling post-pandemic. And, the rail cars that you mentioned are arguably one of the most important initiatives underway at the DOT right now. Those rail cars will open up exciting new opportunities for service. So if you could talk just a little bit about those new rail cars, and then I want to talk to Jim about, his perspective on the importance and what customers are looking for in their rail travel experience. So Rich, first to you, give us a little more on the rail car procurement.
What we're doing is not only working with the negotiations, but really what I want to talk about is what these cars will offer the passengers. What they see today on the shoreline is older equipment. It's what we call them FERSA equipment. And what we have up on the Hartford line, we're leasing equipment from Massachusetts. And that equipment is also in a vintage of age of touching 30 years. So these new cars are exciting. They're an intercity passenger rail car, 2x2 seating, and, giving the customer a very comfortable and stable and nice ride, but also, the bike storage location, Wi-Fi connection, charging at your seats, to ADA compatible, and just a very, the renderings we've seen are just a very nice car. And I know the passengers are going to be very excited when they do come in. It's a period of time from the time we finalize negotiations to signing the contract to having the cars designed, built, final design, because there's some tweaks towards final design, and then building them, manufacturing and building them. So these cars are going to be just spectacular for not only the shoreline, the Hartford line, but our opportunities of the future of what we've talked already a little bit about intercity passenger, but also addressing our short distance commuting needs as well.
Thank you, Rich. And Jim, we rely on the Commuter Rail Council for honest feedback. And we've pulled you into conversations about what these rail cars should be, the types of amenities we should offer, and what types of services we should provide. So, what are customers expecting in their new rail cars, whether it be the M8 fleet or the new fleet that'll be operating on our diesel rail lines?
I think Rich Jankovich made a good point earlier when he talked about the really enhancing the day to day experience for the commuters. So I think that one of the really benefits when the M8s first came on the New Haven line is that you had replaced old aging equipment. It broke down less. They had less issues. There were more outlets. People were able to charge easier, and so that was a big advantage for the New Haven line. And so as you are a commuter on the Waterbury branch, if you're a commuter on the Danbury branch or the Shoreline East, you are sitting in cars that are old. The seats are ripped. The lighting is poor. The ability to charge laptops or charge phones or charge iPads is really not that strong for you. So I do think, and I believe pretty strongly, that the cars will go a long way towards improving the day-to-day experience. I'm also excited about the testing that the Department of Transportation continues to do with the M8s on the Shoreline East, because certainly that will afford the Department of Transportation flexibility to perhaps redeploy cars so that a greater percentage of commuters have the ability to benefit from newer fleet as well.
Yeah, these rail cars, I absolutely agree with you. The expectations are that these, what we call amenities, are really, expectations nowadays in terms of being able to charge a smartphone, having a comfortable space, or even connectivity, broadband, Wi-Fi connectivity. But I'll tell you, Jim, and I'd like to hear more from you. These rail cars represent an opportunity for us to reinvent our rail service. So typically, our workhorse of our rail system in Connecticut has been the New Haven line. It was oriented to daily commuters that were making a trip in and out of the city once per day. With a shift in how people live and work, we're expecting more people to be making longer distance trips, but maybe less frequently. So maybe 2 days a week instead of 5 days a week. So these rail cars, are going to open up new service opportunities. I'd like to hear a little bit from you, Jim, in terms of the importance of that. And I know you're an advocate for all rail commuters, but you're a regular on that Waterbury line. So talk a little bit about the type of service that you're hoping the DOT will provide in the future.
Speaking parochially from the Waterbury line, I would tell you that for certain, having more trips during peak time is certainly critical. I would imagine that is a perspective that all branches have. If you're a Shoreline East rider, having more trips available during peak time will be critical for you. Similarly to folks on the Danbury branch would feel the same way. It's such a catch-22 that we find ourselves in now, though, because ridership doesn't seem to support additional service, but yet it's probably one of those things that are keeping riders from participating. I still go back to the time that in April 2008 when they added the second train on the Waterbury branch, and ridership went up 40%, and that was just a train in the morning. So I do think that we really have a track record of showing that when service is increased, ridership definitely tends to follow. And I also, feel that could have potentially apply to expansion of lines. So I do think that if you expanded the Danbury line into Brookfield or New Milford, I do think you would see more riders. I do think if you expanded the Shoreline East into Westerly, into Groton, into Mystic, I think that would be a boon for rail ridership. So certainly, I think in addition to service, I think trying to expand stations would be as important as well. And I think that's one thing that maybe we don't do enough, is support and rally behind expanding lines. And I certainly understand that because of the economics involved. But I think we have to get to a point where we have potentially rail shovel-ready projects, especially as we talk about the Infrastructure Act. Danbury only got the signalization that they got because the Obama administration had incentive funds out there and they were shovel ready. I think we really have to adopt that mentality now and think to ourselves that there may be money available and be in a position to take advantage of that.
Yeah, Jim, I'll say that the way Hartford Line happened, that was exactly the same situation where we took advantage of high-speed rail funds that were being turned down by other states. I couldn't agree with you more that it tends to be feast or famine, where we have a period of scarcity, and then there's a federal program that makes available significant funding, and we need to be in a position to take advantage. You mentioned, Jim, a couple things, improved service and frequency, as well as improved stations. We've also touched on travel time. And I know Governor Lamont ran on a platform of improving rail service for Connecticut and specifically speeding up our trains. And Rich Jankovich, you've been spearheading a team at DOT to do just that. Can you talk a little bit about the work that's been ongoing and some of the early results?
Absolutely. So, as I mentioned earlier, this speed and capacity analysis that we started a few years ago is an effort from our team, both here within the department as well as with our service providers and a consultant. What they have brought back to us is that there is definitely along the railroad and including the line, the branch lines going and even up on the Hartford, there are opportunities and there is time that we could actually achieve in picking up the speed, changing the stopping patterns, and looking at ways that we could just without major infrastructure in the short term, in the very short term, pick up some speed out there so that customers and passengers that are either going for work during the week or on the weekend can get on trains and move. So that analysis has actually brought the first project to design. It's a 5 mile stretch between Stratford and Bridgeport, which will include 5 bridges. That will improve that particular location, but also further down the line towards the west end of our property, if we own the rail line to New York, the state line. In the Greenwich area, there will be another location that's also from the analysis. We've seen the preliminary and modeling that if we do an improvement down there, infrastructure, it will also, with that, improve speed out there. But we also want to look at what other things we can do. There's curves out there, so we're looking at those. There's what we call the horizontal curvature that when the trains are coming from the New York up towards New Haven, whereabouts along the line where we could straighten some of those out within the existing right of way that would also benefit it. But then, as we're taking this into this next stage, it's really, to Jim's point, putting projects out that are shovel ready. So we're going very aggressively into some of those areas from the analysis. We're studying and reviewing the data with our service providers, especially Metro North. They dispatch and maintain and run the railroad out there. They need to be part of the discussions. But all of the preliminary work that we've been doing with these folks has indicated that these are the future investments. And then obviously movable bridges, the thoughts of going from some of the movable bridges to a fixed bridge are all going to be part of further discussions, but very exciting news about that. I do want to say, to a point that Jim was talking earlier, to have shovel ready projects. Back in the previous administration, about 10 years ago, I should say further back, there was station improvements. We did 2 projects that were not only on the branch lines, but on the main line, where we did, some station improvement and amenities at some of those stations. But we're looking at those as well. Customer service initiative that we'd like to do on the New Haven line is another one that we're going to be aggressively going after over the next few years. So just in general, this speed and capacity is going to feed a lot of good information. It is providing good data to the folks that help run the railroad, but help us in when we're designing the projects of the future.
Rich, I really respect what you and your team have accomplished. You set about, a very challenging goal, which is to substantially improve travel time. And you did two things. One, you did it in a way that was realistic and achievable, right? So we're not talking about new high speed rights of way that would take 25 years to build, but rather improvements that could be implemented now, and commuters could realize these benefits in a matter of months or a few years. So that's number one. Number two, you know, service is, Jim's already pointed out, the schedule has to make sense. People have to have a schedule that works. And so I know, this all sort of ties together with our earlier conversation on rail cars and, an ability to provide new express services from different lines in our system to lower, the Fairfield County or New York City. So that's exciting to our listeners out there listening in right now. Some of these benefits are a matter of months or a few years away, which is pretty quick turnaround for a fairly challenging issue. So let's talk about the upgrades at the Rail Council, because I want to come back to, we have our chair of the Connecticut Rail Council here with us. And Jim, I'm wondering, you've been in advocacy for some time and have been around long enough to see the results of your efforts. Can you talk a little bit about the advocacy and how that has improved commutes for our riders?
I will speak to the Waterbury branch probably because it's the closest to home. I will say that I first got involved in the council really going back almost 10 years ago now, because the Waterbury branch was really just it was a branch that I used, but the scheduling was tough, and rightfully so. I mean, it's 27 miles single track territory, but it also just felt like, and again, I'm going back 10 years, really felt like it was like an afterthought. There wasn't a lot of riders on the branch. It certainly wasn't getting what I thought was a lot of attention. So when I first got on, I mean, I remember things like they took an express train to New York City away. It was the only branch at the time that didn't have President's Day or Martin Luther King or holiday extra scheduling. It was like a Saturday Sunday schedule. It didn't have really much in the way of weekend scheduling, and it needed some attention and advocacy. So I would just tell you that systemically, in over really a 5 to 6 year period, we just advocated and mobilized the legislators on the branch, and we advocated and mobilized the commuters on the branch. We held forums up the branch, and again, I recognize we play only a small part, but that legislative advocacy and the commuter advocacy, little by little, started to really pay off. So initially there would be, we got President Day schedule, enhanced schedule, Martin Luther King Day enhanced schedule. Then they added a train on the weekend, and then soon, the PTC project that was going to be a single passing siding became 4 passing sidings, and became, a $100 million project to lead into additional service. So here we are, 10 years after I started, and again played a very small role. We are probably at the most exciting time that the Waterbury branch has had. We're a year away from enhanced service, 7 additional trains daily, real hourly peak train for a single line track that it was 27 years ago. I will tell you that without question, I always feel that, again, I keep saying the word small. We played a small role, and the council played a small role on taking what was a single track, very little service, aligned to hourly peak service, 7 additional trains, $100 million project. That advocacy paid off.
Jim, we need advocates like you and your fellow council members. We're insiders. It sounds sometimes self-serving if we're advocating. We believe in what we do, but we absolutely need partners like you who can be out there, particularly as a regular commuter on the service. I would argue there's no one better positioned on the advocacy side than yourself, and so your voice makes a big difference. We are excited that the Waterbury line. We should give a little plug here. Starting Rich Jankovich, why don't you take this one? What's happening in 2022 with the Waterbury line service?
Absolutely, Rich, and thanks. And answering that question, I just want to say also, it's been a great working relationship with Jim, and I've seen previous, folks in charge of the council, but Jim has really been just doing a tremendous job. So on the Waterbury, uh, it'll be July of 2022. 7 additional trains will be added, so that's an increase of what we're running out there now. So we're going to be putting 2 additional in the morning commuter trains going down, and then in the evening, 2 additional commuter trains coming back. So from the Bridgeport back to Waterbury, as well as a couple of buses that we've run out there. We're converting those over to all trains and a midday additional train. So 7 additional trains will be in place. We are working with the service provider now and our team at the department on finalizing the actual times, but it's really to give folks, again, to what Jim's been saying throughout this discussion, the options to take the train and get to their work or destination versus making a decision and driving.
Thank you, Rich. We're excited about that. We're really pleased to be able to offer that new service. That's thanks, the governor's budget includes that funding. And we're also working on a number of station improvements. Jim, you pointed out earlier that upgraded stations needs to be a focus, and we're starting with the Waterbury line in terms of making all of those stations level boarding. So in the future, right now you have to climb stairs to get onto the trains on the Waterbury line, with the exception of Waterbury. We will be making all the stations level boarding. So if you're a customer that cannot climb stairs, you'll have the ability now to access those trains in a wheelchair or other mobility device. Very important.
I can
Um,
talk to that if you want real quickly. We're in the process of selecting a consultant, like you said, to design high-level platforms, and we're looking forward to by the fall having it fully authorized. We have funding in place to design those stations, so it'll take some time to get it through final design and out to construction. Estimated within about 2 years from the time about now that we should be into construction, plus or minus the time of year. As you know, up here in the Northeast, starting projects in the middle of the winter. So we're working all those details out now, but we're committed to doing all high levels up there, heated platforms, and again, amenities at the platforms that some of the stations do not have currently for the future.
Very good. And, why don't we wrap up on stations? Because, again, very important, particularly our major terminals or stations at New Haven and Stamford. So, Rich, I know you've got
Yeah,
some programs underway. Just a very high level update on those projects.
absolutely. We'll start all the way down at the western end in Stanford. So Stanford is in what we're calling a master plan. Our team in the department, Office of Rail, with a consultant, is well underway of doing a master plan. They're doing outreach, as well as they will be looking at everything going on inside and outside around that. But it also includes a new parking garage that's already going to be going out to construction. It's a design build project. So very exciting. A lot of things happening at Stanford. As we move up the line, we will be doing some platform repairs along some of the stations as we head towards New Haven. And then as we get to New Haven, we are in the process right now of finalizing an agreement with the city going forward. And as part of that agreement, a capital program that will let you lay out over the next 35 years, because that's the agreement life, but a lot of capital improvements at New Haven Station. And then we're wrapping up on the shoreline at Clinton. That will be open and in service, even though we're out there running and stopping at it right now, Rich. That wraps up in December of 21. And then up on the Hartford Line, 2 initiatives, the roof and canopy at Hartford Station. We're going to try to get that done. It looks like it's going to be going into next year, but also Windsor Locks Station, doing a complete new facility there and working with the town so we can make good connections with the airport, but a needed improvement up on the Hartford Line. So I believe I hit most of the work. And then obviously we talked about the design on the Waterbury. the stations, but we also have a master plan for the Waterbury branch. What that plan will produce is not only future investments on the infrastructure, but also an analysis of the market opportunities and looking at what we can do even more out there, which we've been talking about recently. So a master plan for the Waterbury.
So we have some really great progress going on. We're not easing up at the DOT on investment in rail. The rail service in the future, I think, Jim, you had a comment, more of a glass half full rather than a glass half empty perspective on the future of rail, which I love. And, even if we serve, quote unquote, only 20 million riders a year or only 30 million riders a year, that would still put this rail system among the top systems in the nation. So we need to keep that perspective and remind ourselves, too, that our rail travelers that are traveling out there are relying on these services, and these services are part of our economy. And we will need our rail system going forward. So I'd like to have a closing comment or two from each of you.
Well, thanks, Rich. This was a great discussion. I always enjoy not only speaking with the folks that use the systems, but with Jim Gildea. But I just have to say, the enthusiasm in our department, from the leadership through me to our staff, about these opportunities for not only the passengers, but I really want to make the point to businesses that are looking at Connecticut. We have a lot of things going on, not only short term, but long term, and we're really excited about what we can do. And we are going to do it under the leadership that we currently have. So I just ask everyone who's looking at Connecticut, either to live here or to bring their business here, really consider not only being on the main line, but as we talked about Waterbury and other branches, look at other locations, because there's a lot of opportunities that we'd love to talk about and bring additional services for folks to really come to Connecticut.
Rich, thank you. And Jim, final word to you.
I do believe, and I'm a half full type of guy, I think rail ridership is going to come back. And although it may not be at the 40 million ridership, I do think it's going to come back, and I do think it's going to be strong. And I think the numbers of some of the branches support that. I also think you really mentioned something that's critical. These rail lines don't just move people going to their jobs. They play a critical economic driver for the towns that they run through, the geographical areas that they run to. It's impacting businesses. It's impacting restaurants, shops. And so I do think they provide a critical service. And so the investment that the Department of Transportation has put in is necessary. It makes sense. And I do think that in the long run will continue to pay off.
Jim, thank you. Thank you for making the time in your busy schedule, both of you, to join me on the program. As you've heard, the Connecticut Department of Transportation is working hard to provide our customers the rail service they expect and deserve. However, as we start to see a return to more normal times, there are many changes still in store to come, including new rail cars, updated train stations, and faster trips. Be sure to tune in to future podcasts to learn more. Once more, I'd like to give a special thank you to Rich Jankovich, Rail Administrator at the Connecticut Department of Transportation, and Jim Gildea, Chairman of the Connecticut Commuter Rail Council. As a reminder, you can find all podcasts of Along the Lines on your favorite podcast platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and SoundCloud. I'm Rich Andreski. Please join us next time for another episode of Along the Lines. Thanks for listening to this episode of Along the Lines. This is your host, Rich Andreski. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please remember to subscribe and share.